Hello, League fans, and welcome to the 2018 North American Academy League. I'm Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, and I have once again answered the call to join Mark Zimmerman for tonight's Academy Games.
Yeah, I called a lot of people before you. You were just the first one to pick up and actually agree to come back on.
The fact that you called me is more than enough for me, Mark. I appreciate it. But before we get into today's games, we've got some exciting news to cover. Levi has finally arrived in North America and will be playing with 100 Thieves Academy for the rest of the split.
Yeah, he played last night off broadcast, whipping out the Jacks, and had a pretty good performance overall, really high KDA, was able to get a lot of ganks on early, combining with standing in the mid lane, that Galio, a lot of gank assist, and gonna have a lot of big things to watch out for with Levi.
Absolutely, but he's not the only import joining Academy this week because Piglet has returned from a family emergency in Korea, and he's going to be joining Clutch Gaming Academy.
And unlike Levi, he was not able to find the win this time around. It was a pretty hard-fought game. As you can see, lots of close team fights between these two teams. And TSM Academy, despite not having the best record, is a very formidable opponent, kind of like TSM in the actual LCS right now. Kind of feels like they're underperforming a little bit. So it was hard for Piglet to step up. You saw some late game team fights, really, really close. Lots of low health bars, but just not quite going his way. So we'll have to see a little bit more out of Piglet coming up.
And finally, we have moved over to patch 8.3. It is a relatively small patch, but there are a few changes of note that might mix up the meta a bit.
Yeah, I think the thing most people are looking at are the nerfs that kind of came in for Jarvan and Sejuani. They're not huge, and there's no other like huge buffs coming in with jungle champions as well to put some other champions into that pool, but it may restructure the current meta of junglers a little bit.
I mean, we saw it in a couple of the clips. We saw it in NALCS already. We might get to see some more of my favorite champions, some of those Skarner plays coming out today, but we'll just have to wait and see exactly how the teams want to go about their jungling this time. You can see a couple of those moves that I'm talking about on the screen right now, so I'm excited for the potential of that.
Yeah, absolutely. With how fast he clears in the jungle compared to a lot of other tanks right now, he's able to farm up, get tanky a little bit faster, and you don't need that all the time, so there's plenty of other CC available to him, so Skarner probably rising that priority list a little bit with those nerfs.
But besides our first looks at Levi and Piglet in the off-air games, it was business as usual in the other matches, with all three of the teams tied for first, claiming yet another victory. That keeps them at the top of the table, with TSM holding sole possession of 4th place. They're one win ahead of the three-way tie for 5th between 100 Thieves, Clutch Gaming, and Echo Fox, with OpTic and Golden Guardians at the bottom of the standings. But we have one more day of games before we close out Week 5 and the first half of the round robin. So let's take a look at what's in store today. The Academy squads of OpTic Gaming and Golden Guardians will start us off. Piglet and the rest of Clutch Gaming take on first place FlyQuest in Game 3 before Levi and 100 Thieves battle with Echo Fox. Finally, we're going to close out the day with Liquid versus CLG.
Yep, very good day of games ahead of us. I'm really looking forward to it.
It hopefully should be a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and dive into that first matchup where OpTic takes on the Golden Guardians. While neither of these teams is looking hot after 4 weeks of play, they have a chance to finish out the round robin here today with a win.
Yeah, what needs to be in both these teams' minds here is that they're up against another lower seeded team, so they have a really good chance to walk away with a win when they're not playing against the top of the teams.
And not just that, beyond that though, the players have a lot to prove here as individuals as well.
Right, individually is something to keep our eye out for because these organizations aren't doing great in Academy, but their LCS rosters aren't at the top of the table either, so there's a huge opportunity here for players to really show their potential and what they might be able to achieve if they get onto an LCS roster. It'll be one of the teams at the bottom of the standing who's going to look to change players out first and try their substitutes that are doing well in Academy.
Yep, we're going to go ahead and find out whose time it is to shine right now. Let's find out, starting with OpTic Gaming here on the blue side. Dokla in the top lane, Kadir in the jungle, Palafox mid, Andy bot lane, and Winter supporting.
And over on the red side is Golden Guardians. In the top lane, Jenkins, Jungle Potluck, Bob Chin in the mid lane, Jurassic at bottom, and all supported by the veteran Xpecial.
Now, you already mentioned it, but individuality is more important in Academy League than it is winning as a team in the professional LCS scene, right? You want to prove that you're one of those guys who can step up and maybe take one of those spots, especially in a game like this where the main rosters are struggling as much as their Academy counterpart.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's important to note that it's not quite a, like, I'm going to get mine mentality that you sometimes see in sports like basketball where it's like, I have the ball, I'm going to shoot it all the time.
No ball hogging.
Yeah, no ball hogging here. You still want to show you can play the team game. Obviously, if you do get a chance to move up, people are going to reach out to your org, reach out to your coaching staff and be like, hey, how was that player? Was it just that he demanded counterpick every game and smashed? Is that why he looked good, or was he actually a team player and this was, a good attitude all around?
You got to walk the line. You've got to both work well with your team, function in that competitive 5v5 environment, but also stand out.
Exactly.
Be one of those names that's constantly in the conversation. Let's go ahead, jump into Champion Select for the first time here today, and ooh, some respect being paid towards my favorite Scorpion. Going to be banned away first and foremost by OpTic Academy. Galio also banned away by them, while on the opposite side, you've got Zoe and Tristana bans.
Oh man, I can't believe people are still banning Zoe after
Oh,
the
no.
crippling nerfs that came in. A quarter second off her Q Mount late game. Yeah, I think this
No
is a big
idea how
mistake
that
here.
happened.
Banning,
No idea
banning
how that
away to
happened.
Zoe, yeah.
Well, over on OpTic Academy, third and final ban is going to be Rise. Even though he can no longer do the Zhonya's ult interaction, we still do see bans targeted towards him.
Yeah, absolutely. A pretty substantial ban there. He was a big threat in the late game. If he gets ahead, just no one can handle him in the 1-3-1, and then he has that unbelievable get-out-of-jail-free card with his ultimate Zhonya's interaction. Now that that's gone, he's a lot more punishable, but he still is a bit of a nightmare in those 1v1 settings.
Yeah, get-out-of-jail-free card's nice, but it's not necessarily needed to win the game when there's a lot of other power in the kit. Camille will be that final ban for Golden Guardians this time around. If you tuned into EU LCS this morning, there was a pretty substantial Camille 1v2 outplay there, so that champion has definitely proved itself lately in the top lane. Going to be taken off the board this time, though. OpTic Academy locks in another top lane powerhouse with the Gangplank.
Yep, still kind of the GP metagame right now, where either you take the GP, you kind of sack that lane a little bit early on to become a god in late game team fights, and the enemy team usually has to pick something that's going to punish it and outperform it in the early game, so OpTic choosing the scaling side of that metagame.
All right, let's see how Golden Guardians respond. They say, hey, you want to scale? We'll scale. They grab the Azir for themselves there in the mid lane, grabbing the Varus AD carry as well.
Varus is a little surprising. Yes, there is the Tristana ban, but that's the only one on the table right now. Kog'Maw was hit in this patch as well, so people expect his priority to drop. But Ezreal's been hit a little bit already, but people still like comboing him with the Azir to get that really long-range kind of pokey siege playstyle that you can get. So a little surprised to see the Varus, and there you go.
All right, we've got the Ezreal picked up. Sejuani going to be in there as well. When your top laner is something that doesn't have those tanky attributes like the Gangplank, going to be more of a carry, a damage dealer, you want to have a front line on your team still. Not really too surprised to see something like that Sejuani coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we said, maybe restructure the jungle tier list a little bit. You see Skarner thrown in as the ban, but a lot of the same champions more or less. So there you see the Sejuani, Ezreal like we were talking about, and then Gnar. It's very important for Golden Guardians to grab their top lane counter pick before OpTic gets the chance to throw a couple bans up there and limit what you can play into that GP.
Right, because we know GP scales so hard, and you've got to try to slow that down as much as you can. Pick something advantageous into that. Gnar, with the range, can deal with the barrels better than a lot of other champions can. So not super surprised to see this matchup pick. You actually see it a lot.
You see it all the time. Has good, strong laning against the GP early on. Then in team fights, does transition better than some of the more lane-focused counters that can go against GP. Gnar, when he gets Mega Form, still is a monster if he gets the right flank engage.
We'll have to see how those two play out there in the top lane. But now we're into the second part of the bans as we actually see the Veigar banned away by Golden Guardians.
Yep, Palafox picked up a win on that, I believe 2 weeks ago. Maybe it was just last week, but it was a champion that surprised the enemy team, was able to get them their second victory, or maybe it was his third, I forget exactly. But either way, Palafox is probably the scariest guy on the side of OpTic Academy individually, so it's no surprise to see him getting a couple bans thrown his way.
Well, OpTic Academy is going to ban the champion that I've been banning for the past 2 or 3 patches in a row, keeping that Nunu off of Summoner's Rift. Not wanting to deal with that in the jungle. We're going to see Braum also banned away by Golden Guardians, their last one.
Nunu Azir, everyone hates that. No one wants to play against it.
Still fun factor 0. Absolutely not.
Nah, get it out of there. Also does work well with Varus, who has some AP ratios in his kit on hit damage, so you can understand them taking that one down. And then Zac, the other ban, like we said, Jarvan getting hit a little bit, maybe not as important. Zac is a champion that's actually kind of been performing up there with Sejuani and the J4 for about a little while now, so now that he wasn't touched, he's maybe better than them.
Right. You're not as worried about the Jarvan. You already picked Sejuani. You banned Skarner away, so just hit that pool one more time. Knock him down a tier. To see how Golden Guardians respond to that, but they've already grabbed themselves their support with the Tahm Kench.
Varus, a mobile back line a little bit, so get some more safety in there, as well as the Braum ban that came in, so just grabbing up a big tanky support.
I like it. I think it's a great pick. You talked about how Varus is immobile, but also you're up against something like a Sejuani that has huge initiation capabilities. Now that Alistar's locked in as well, that's something you want to be able to protect that AD carry from.
Yeah, and maybe they were reading Palafox's champion pool a little bit here. He's played a lot of Azir. He's played the Veigar. Now he's locking in the Syndra into Tahm Kench, who was known as a little bit of a counter because when Syndra oftentimes she kind of flashes in, drops her ultimate, kills somebody, and then in that moment wins the team fight. But you don't have that option against the Tahm Kench unless he's not there.
Right, you have to outplay his positioning, and that's something that he's going to have to be worried about now for the rest of that match. But let's see how Golden Guardians decide to close this one out in the jungle. A lot of the tanks removed or picked, and one of the few remaining ones is that Gragas they pick up for themselves.
Yeah, always relevant in the meta, is a little bit slower clear speed than it used to be, not quite as dangerous early on, but still has that ultimate, can blow anybody back into your team. That's a huge threat. Does combo pretty well against Tahm Kench in the same way that Zac is sometimes good, because his elastic slingshot and ultimate back pulls the Tahm Kench even if he's devoured his teammate. Works the same way with the Gragas ultimate. You get that 2-for-1 knockback if he tries to save somebody.
Gragas is one of those champions I feel like I practically never watch a game and say, you know what, Gragas did okay. Because the way the ultimate is either going to completely mess up your plan or make everything fall into place, it almost feels like the champion has got to go to heaven or to hell. There's no way he's just going to cruise along at normal speed.
Absolutely, and it's sad that no longer do you have to worry about the Gragas one-shot days. If you remember back when you used to
I don't
throw.
know if sad's the word I would use,
miss
Mark.
those
I
days.
don't miss that at all.
I miss when the Gragas would throw his barrel somewhere. It seemed like it was random, and then they chuck their ultimate and knock them into the barrel that they already pre-planted.
Just one hit him.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that probably feels bad, but it was beautiful to watch when Gragases could execute that.
Maybe it was because I was never a Gragas player myself, but I was not too happy with those interactions.
Yeah, I understand, I guess.
All right, we are on to Summoner's Rift for the first time here today, seeing how these two teams can compete in this matchup. Like we already mentioned, a couple of the teams hanging out at the bottom part of the standings right now. And an important thing to note as we do get towards the end of this first round robin and work our way into the second half of this spring split for Academy League, only the top 4 teams get to go to playoffs. Mark.
Yeah.
This isn't like the LCS where top 6 get to go. And if you're one of the middle of the pack teams or if you're one of the lower of the pack teams, that's actually really concerning because it's much harder to earn your place.
Yeah, I mean, it really limits how much you can expect out of a late season push. There's a lot of guys in the LCS right now who, despite having, negative records below 500, they still have a chance to make that push. So much more difficult here in the Academy League. And early on, some aggression, supports playing with each other level 1.
Yep. And that does mean, to me at least, if I'm looking at one of these teams that is hanging around towards the bottom of the standings right now, you have to look at this as like your last chance to really hit the gas, right? You need to start making a push, grabbing a win streak if you want to contest for one of those playoff spots. So for both of these teams, like you mentioned before we even got into Champion Select, this is a chance to grab a win and set yourself off towards success in the second half of the split. Because if you lose too many more games, you're going to knock yourself out of that contention.
Mm-hmm. And then also, like we said, you still just want to look good individually, so plenty of chances here to stand out.
Lots of time to shine. Let's see who's going to explicitly end up doing it this time around. Nothing really super interesting happening early on. Nobody tried any crazy level 1 invades. You're not seeing any cheesy level 2 ganks. Just all par for the course.
Yep. Gragas does have the ability to do some cheesy stuff, but people don't go for that too much anymore. The interesting matchup from a proving yourself perspective, I think, is the top lane. The GP Gnar meta matchup is so prevalent right now. You want to show that you can execute on that matchup. So if you're the GP side, you're doing your best to go even. You want to farm up and then show that you can hit those barrel chains later on in the game. If you're the Gnar, you want to pressure them in. You want to have a CS advantage. You're ideally coordinating dives with the rest of your team to blow that side of the top of the map open, and then those two guys are going to be competing against each other, trying to fulfill those expectations.
I think that brings up an interesting conversation about those matchups that you see repeated over and over and over again. Because a lot of times you see people talk about, oh, top lane feels really shallow right now because we're only seeing the same 3 champions or the same 4 champions or something like that. But what that means is when I see somebody on one of those matchups that feels like it's so popular, that feels like it's so prevalent, that's the matchup I should be watching closer than any other one in terms of judging how good they're actually going to be as a player, because that's the one you've got to know if you want to succeed.
Exactly. So, talk about another player in Academy. Viper is playing all this crazy stuff, and it's good to see that he can execute it in a competitive setting, but you don't know exactly if that's all he can do, and you run into a little bit of a concern that if you do bring him up onto your team, can he play the GP
How
Gnar
relevant
matchup?
is this?
Yeah, how relevant will it be? And so that's why, despite it being a, boring matchup, you could say in air quotes, because we see it so often, it is still very relevant for these two players.
Right. It's one of those kinds of things where you've got to master the meta. You can't go around and just pick random stuff all the time. Pocket picks are great, but if you use them all the time, are they really in your pocket? 2 versus 2 breaking out here in the bottom lane. Winter going to be targeted, but Xpecial putting himself in harm's way to do it. Going to be ignited as Winter barely getting himself away as well. Supports both dropped under 100 HP.
Oh yeah, Winter showing a lot of faith in Andy there. Does not end up blowing his heal wall. On the flip side, they get the heal out of Jurassic. So a small trade there in favor of OpTic, but got to be careful.
All right, Potluck coming in, making a flash play. First blood goes over to Xpecial. Not quite the guy you'd want it on, but it's still first blood. Golden Guardians.
False sense of security there. Like we were just saying, they get the summoner advantage. They're feeling good, but the Gragas was already known to be down around the bot side a little bit. He was on Krugs not too long ago. Wraps around for that gank there, and a nice flash body slam to get the first blood there on a skin that I do not recognize, Captain Flowers.
A skin that you do not
Is that
recognize.
new?
The Gragas one?
Yeah, is that a new
Yeah,
Gragas?
that's Arctic Ops Gragas. That's the newest one that dropped.
I'm out of the loop. All these newfangled kids.
Back in my day,
all
we had was Hillbilly Gragas, and we liked it.
What was the Oktoberfest Gragas?
Oh yeah, Oktoberfest Gragas, the one that hit
that was the
plays
hotness.
music while he backs. Oh yeah, that one was cool, man. Gragas Esquire with his big wine cask.
Yeah, man. Not these newfangled OpTic snow skin things.
Yeah. Too cool. It is a pretty cool skin.
It does look very, very good, and it's kind of funny against OpTic Academy.
Yeah, you're up against OpTic Academy, you're up against Snowy Sejuani, and you're a Snowy Gragas. There's a lot of thematics going on here, but Kadir getting himself caught a little bit in the enemy jungle, has backup from Winter.
Winter wants to be there, though.
Finds its way onto Potluck. Xpecial grabbing the stun, but Winter should still be able to make his way out here pretty easily. Kadir wanting to get in there for some vision.
Yep, it was a good time for the invade, given that Bob Chin has just recalled, so despite the fact that the enemy jungler and support was there to collapse on and make it a little dicey, as soon as Palafox made his way over there, no one really wanted any more of that because it was a 3v2.
Nice seeing rotations from both these supports as well. I mean, when we talk about supports, I mean, you've essentially got 2 different kinds of supports, right? You've got the really supporty style ones, like the Lulu and the Janna, the ones that sit on the AD carry, the babysitters, right? And then you've got the playmakers. You've got your Alistars. You've got your engage tools, right? And when you talk about those playmakers, a lot of the times, one of those big conversation pieces is going to be, how well do they rotate? How well do they get out of their lanes and help the team? And how big of an early impact do they have? So, especially looking at that individuality we were talking about, Mark, I like to see supports roaming. That, to me, is a huge proving point.
Yeah, Winter is on one of the premier champs for that as well. We've already seen both in the LCS and Academy Leagues, Smoothie and Zazel having huge performances on this champion, so it's a great one to try and shine when you get your opportunities.
That's your muscle flexor right there, but again, Xpecial on that Tom Kench, playing a champion that is a fantastic babysitter. If you can gobble somebody up and keep them safe, one of the best things you can do in terms of allowing your AD carry to put the team on his back and do the damage he needs to do to win this game. Taking a look at where the gold is, dead even. Very slight advantage to OpTic, even though first blood went over to Golden Guardians. And you can see Kadir hanging out in this top lane right now, thinking maybe there's a counter gank to make. You would have to assume that that's the plan he's going for, since his laner's the one who's so far shoved up.
Yeah, it's a little surprising considering that usually GP doesn't have this level of pressure on the Gnar, as well as the 15 CS advantage. And Kadir coming up here means that that's going to stay that way. So not a great start for Jenkins in this matchup. We talk about how you want to shine in this, and Doppler looking real good early on.
Yeah, press rewind a little bit. Go back to what you mentioned earlier about how both of these two show off in this matchup. The Gangplank trying to break even, trying to weather the storm and get to the mid game. The Gnar trying to bully him around. Well, there ain't no storm to weather when you're 66 to 50.
Not at all. So a couple of important things to note are just the items that they're both on. When you're playing the Gnar side of this matchup, it's pretty common as we see a little bit of a skirmish down here.
A bit of a scuffle. Winter looking to get himself away now. Xpecial trying to find the stun here, but instead going to be popping the thick skin as the Gangplank ulti rains down, providing backup for the OpTic Academy bottom lane, forcing Golden Guardians back.
Not going to have any result there. But what I was saying is, on the Gnar side, usually you try and farm up, and you often see a Ninja Tabbies first back out of them. So that way the GP Sheen Q harass that can actually do a fair amount of damage is no longer as effective against you, and then you really start bullying as your Q cooldown gets lower and lower, and you can really start shoving in that GP. But just because the matchup is a little difficult for Gnar early on does not mean it should be that bad.
All right, Potluck back into bottom lane, looking to repeat the success from earlier. Can they find it, though? Winter barely hanging on. One last hit will do it, and the cask takes it this time.
Nice gank there on the side of Golden Guardians Academy. Winter played it fairly well, able to dodge out on some skill shots using the headbutt, but still goes down.
But now, can they get Andy? That's going to be the question here. Potluck again trying to make the moves. You've got your stopwatch being used. Andy's still under pressure, though. Kadir coming in. Reinforcements have arrived. The stun down onto the enemy jungler. The turret onto the support will take his life as Jurassic and Potluck both try to get themselves out. More backup is on the way, and it's not the kind they want. Scatter the Weak doesn't find its mark. Potluck trying to get himself away. Flash for flash, but the stun missing doesn't even matter. The ult connects, finds its mark, and now Bobchin. The backup has finally arrived for Golden Guardians, but the double kill over to the OpTic Academy mid laner is still going to be there. This time, Scatter the Weak will find the mark, and Winter has arrived in time. Bobchin now going to be on the wrong side of Summoner's Rift. Winter needs one more hit to do it. Kadir sliding forward, and that second part of the Flayo will find its mark.
Oh, Bobchin betrays his team there, puts them on top of his AD carry, one of those mistakes that you sometimes make with Azir, delivers the kill of Jurassic, and then, you know, without his AD carry to back him up, it's easy for the rest of them to focus him down, as well as the respawning Winter, able to get revenge for going down earlier on. Bit of a crazy, crazy fight down there in the bot lane.
Crazy and long. That fight started and didn't end for a while.
Well, so it starts out on the redive onto Andy. Overall, I like this. He drops his stopwatch maybe a little bit early, but gets the flash out. Eventually, Xpecial will get the Devour down, but then the stun up shows, especially as turret aggro can't get out from under there. Kadir doing his best to punish Potluck, who has no mana anymore, and then the Syndra gets the fast path, misses her skill shots, doesn't matter, you're Syndra, just flash and press R.
There's one that you can't miss.
That gameplay everybody loves about Syndra, but then this is a bad decision to go aggressive. They knew that Bobchin was coming down there, but he misplays, he puts them on top of Jurassic to give him the kill. Should get the cleanup kill on the Palafox, but a big stun buys time for Winston to get in range, knocks him up. And it's one of those kind of comedy of errors where that play probably should have ended a couple deaths ago. And here we go, still fighting in the bottom.
We're not done yet, Mark. More fights, more blood between these squads in the bottom part of the map. Jurassic trying to get himself away, but the Sejuani ulti hitting means he is not long for this world. Andy grabbing the kill that time. Palafox now trying to escape the 2v1, or is he? Looks to go back in and grab the kill onto his opponent, but instead going to be shut down first. Winter rotates over, now trying to continue this fight. He's got backup from Kadir, who's looking to land the stun, maybe taking Xpecial down before the skin, can't quite do it. Devour down onto Winter, but Xpecial's still going to be a crispy fried
Gnar TP's in!
As Gnar TP's into the fight. It's going to be going even longer all the way home. Andy is not going home in anything but a body bag today. Bobchin needs a little bit more damage. Potluck trying to chase him down and end this one. One more auto attack should do it, as more fights in the bottom lane. Winter struggling to hobble away from this one. Good body block from Kadir to stop that Mega Gnar from hitting him, and I think it's finally over.
No, roll another fight. Let Captain Flowers keep going. I'm having a ball just watching. Getting your money's worth here in another bot lane skirmish. Once again, working out a little bit better for OpTic. Given their comp, you got to be pretty happy with how this is going. But here we go. There you go, Captain Flowers. Go again.
Topside, we had a whole 20 seconds without a fight, so here we go. Dokla, can he get away? I don't think so. Pops the flash anyway. The tongue comes down. The kill comes out. Money in Potluck's pocket.
There we go. Ties it up 6-6. Jungler shows on the top side, so a good answer by Kadir down here to grab that Infernal Dragon, and Palafox has some time alone in the mid lane.
You know what's cool about this being 6-6? Both junglers are full kill participation this game.
Oh, Xpecial wants some too. He's like, hey, I want more kill participation.
All right, let's see if he can get it. Palafox trying to get away from this. One more lick, and he's going to end up getting devoured. There you go. Gets spit right back out into the enemy team. Bobchin grabs that kill, and the rest of OpTic is not there in time to provide any retaliation.
And we are up to a kill a minute. Very nice to see that.
It's one of those kinds of games, Mark.
It's one of those games. Xpecial going on a mission.
Into enemy territory.
Getting collapsed on.
But is he too far forward?
No, there's too many people in the mid lane with Palafox still being dead. Golden Guardians are pushing that one down, so no one wants to collapse on the overextended Xpecial as they try and defend this mid lane turret, but it's probably going to go down for first turret of the game here in the mid lane of all things.
All right, Golden Guardians making the push. OpTic wanting to defend this one. Winter going to be going in, trying to force these guys away. Stuns coming out, damage going down. Sejuani ultimate finding its way onto that enemy Gragas. Winter still barely alive. Nice heal coming out from Andy to keep him going. No deaths in that entire mess, and OpTic holds the line.
I thought for sure someone was going to go down there. A nice defense by OpTic, keep the turret alive, keep their teammates alive, and they're able to stall that out. And it has a really nice tempo advantage for them now because after that skirmish, everyone's so low. Palafox coming back onto the map, full health, full mana. We'll have a pretty good amount of time here to roam around, clear out some wards, get some pressure down in that mid lane, and hopefully start finding some opportunities to get OpTic some more kills. Thus far, it's not too bad for them to be even in this game. The bot lane of Golden Guardians have a little bit more strength early on. The top lane much the same way, so the fact that they're hanging even thus far is great for them, as well as that Infernal Dragon that they've grabbed.
And that Infernal Drake is the only objective secured so far this game. We saw this attempt at an objective that didn't work out.
Yeah, and so you saw after picking off the mid laner, they wanted to find an opportunity to get aggressive here. It looks like things are going to go great. They're focusing down Winter, who pops his ultimate. But the heal by Andy is perfectly timed. The stun comes in, cutting some damage there. And then some nice body blocking, as well as another stun there to make sure that no other damage is going to get onto that Alistar. He's able to get away. And everyone, including the turret, is able to walk away alive.
And what I'm really looking for here, Mark, is which team can translate these brawls, this bloody game, into some objectives. Because when the turrets are still 0-0 after all the fighting that's been going on, it means that whether or not you're winning these fights, what's your trophy? You're just walking home with less of a black eye than the other guy.
Well, Syndra in particular definitely enjoys the bloody gameplay. She wants to get a ton of kills down, make it so her ultimate starts really hurting. Level 11 now. So Syndra is a champion who is happy to see summoners down. Easier to find pickoffs that way, but Barth's kind of the same way. He has ultimate. Gragas likes being able to throw his ultimate and know that no one's going to jump to the other side of it and get knocked back. So both these teams have champions that are pretty happy with the bloodier style of game, but I think OpTic probably wants to slow it down a little bit.
As
that
saw,
that Gangplank scale.
Yeah, you got to let the Gangplank scale. We just saw the gold values pop up on the screen. The Gangplank, the biggest lead in terms of roll-by-roll matchups if you're looking at the gold advantage for OpTic Academy. The biggest lead on the other side of the coin, though, is actually the support difference. Xpecial with a pretty substantial lead over his opponent, almost 1,000 gold up when you compare it to the Alistar of Winter.
Got a lot of kills and assists, man.
Yeah, doing work. 1 kill, 1 extra assist over his opponent. He's even got 9 more CS. His Relic Shield's putting in work.
Yeah, getting a lot more gold. And those top laners, sadly, a little bit on island. Only 1 kill or assists on their side in a very bloody game. This is why you hear all the top laners in the current meta complaining.
Oh, man, the Shin effect.
Yeah, they're just not happy. They're not involved in the rest of the game.
But that actually ties back into something you said earlier, where you were talking about the Gnar and what his mission was and what he wanted to accomplish. He said setting up dives, making things happen to shut that Gangplank down, but the dive is actually coming in from OpTic Academy onto Jenkins here. They should be able to secure this kill rather easily, giving the money over to Dokla, along with taking down that turret. The first one of the game will drop even more money in GP's pockets. The mid lane tier 1 will go down in return for that one. Golden Guardians at least taking advantage of the fact that there's a lot of manpower topside from the side of OpTic, and they're going to go for 2 here.
Yeah, a little bit of an overextension on the side of OpTic there. They only needed the jungler up there, but Andy had made his way up there as well. Winter was on the top side of the map. They kind of overinvested in the resources needed to take that turret. It's great that they were able to grab it first, though, because Golden Guardians had that counter push going in the mid lane. So they're able to get that first turret gold in their pocket. Now they're transitioning over to this Rift Herald.
Yeah, OpTic is still pushing onto the tier 2 top side with only the Gangplank, and they figured, hey, we got the dudes up here, so let's just rotate our dudes over to Rift Herald and see what we can do there. That's another big objective that you can use to then push down turrets somewhere else. That top lane tier 2 still barely hanging on for Jenkins.
You gotta think Gangplank will be able to take that one pretty soon. He has a 30 CS lead in the matchup, mostly on his own. Kadir has been up there a couple times to apply pressure, but the two of them are comboing together perfectly to make sure that this Gangplank is completely online. Like you said, the biggest goal difference in the game right now.
All right, next Drake spawning 45 seconds from now. Baron will be live in under 2 minutes, and we know when Baron spawns, games can go from real quiet to real loud. This one's already been pretty loud.
Maybe they'll go the other way. They all get scared around there.
Maybe they'll all get quiet. We'll just do the Baron dance for 20 minutes, and eventually somebody will go for it. We'll have to see how these two teams decide to play it out. It still is a pretty close game, but OpTic Academy almost 2,000 gold up now thanks to both the first turret bonus as well as that Gangplank farming advantage we talked about. Gangplank's one of those champions I like to describe it as when you go even with Gangplank, you're not actually going even with Gangplank just because the champion has so much gold generation in his kit. you've got to beat him if you want to go even.
Yeah, there's been a couple of those kinds of champions over the course, but I don't think there's ever been any in League of Legends history quite as far down that kind of philosophy as Gangplank. You know, even a couple seasons ago, it was like you killed him twice in lane and he's down 20 CS. That's not good enough. And
it's like, nope, he's still richer than you.
Yep, you have to really destroy a Gangplank. He doesn't scale quite as crazy as he used to back in the day when he had the, what, I don't know, 70% armor penetration.
Whoop, Bobchin trying to get himself away from this one, throws out that Shurima shuffle to try to knock the enemy support back. Potluck trying to make a play, flash away from Kadir to prevent himself from being knocked back by the ulti. Winter's still trying to get out, but he's caught between a rock, a hard place, and a mini Gnar, and that's not where you want to be. Bobchin grabbing a killing spree on that.
Yeah, Winter goes down for his 3rd time this game, and like you said, Ocean Dragon spawn, that's why everyone was down there fighting for vision control of that objective, and with Winter dead, you have to think Golden Guardians are going to be able to grab that one in their first break for themselves.
Well, if you're Golden Guardians, you would hope so. Being set up in that 5 versus 4 situation without one of the primary engages on the enemy team should mean that objective goes down uncontested. They'll leave Potluck in the pit to grab it by himself. He's a Cinder Hulk full tank Gragas. He's not going to do it really fast, so you'd like to see at least one other guy go over there to help him out, which is what Jurassic's going to be doing right now, but that does give OpTic Academy the opportunity to use Shelly in the mid lane, grab this tier 1 turret for themselves. Shelly might not even need to hit this. Nope.
Oh, got a little confused there.
Yeah, she got a little confused. She was rearing her head, ready to headbutt, but
she was doing the shuffle.
Yeah,
it
it was ready to go, man. The angry bull, ready to charge.
Yeah, watching
Space Bull.
Too many music videos recently. So Shelly is actually just going to die in the mid lane. Will not get her charged off.
Oh, poor Shelly. She died in vain.
Well, got to be upset at Kadir for that one.
Yeah, Kadir left Shelly to a very unscrumptious, or I don't even know if that's a word, but a very undesirable fate. That was not what you want to see, but I don't actually know exactly what the timer was looking like on her at that point. Sometimes you just drop a less than optimal Rift Herald because of the fact that it's about to run out and it's use it or lose it. But
yeah, I think they took it not too long ago. It was during that top lane, mid lane split push kind of situation. But it did feel kind of like Golden Guardians were on the Dragon. They wanted to get the counter push in the mid lane. They saw Bobchin wrapping back around with the Azir, so they wanted to just make sure that they got that mid lane turret. Dokula was able to do it himself, but at least you were guaranteed to get it with the dropping of the Rift Herald.
Yeah, it makes sure that there's no weird way that you could end up accidentally leaving the turret alive with 100 HP or something. I can understand where they were coming from on the side of OpTic with that one, but now that Baron's alive, that's the name of the game, Mark. Attention turns towards that top part of the river as teams go back and forth for vision. You can see Potluck clearing out a little bit, placing down some of his own Scryer's Bloom going to be fired off, so OpTic is aware that there is a control ward in that pixel brush. And looking at the wards across the map, you can see a few from OpTic there in the top part of their own jungle, a couple in the bottom part of their own jungle as well, just really being cautious if their opponents look to invade or set anything up. They want to be aware.
Yeah, definitely the case. You see them completely focused around the Baron buff now as Dokula and Jenkins have flipped down to the bot side. Jenkins, you see, still really getting the worst end of this matchup, getting chased down the lane by the red buff GP. Really having a tough time in this game. At this point, it becomes a question of what can the Gnar do? Can't split push better than the GP. Maybe can team fight better if the GP struggles to land his barrels and ultimate, but that's something that most GPs at this level of play can do just fine.
And you've got to be a bit worried too, because I mean, this is a Gnar who only has 1.5 items. You've got a Black Cleaver and a Jarm's Fist. So you're not tanky at all. You don't have any sort of survivability in these team fights. Even if you're Mega Gnar and you jump in versus a Syndra, versus an Ezreal, versus a Gangplank, you're going to get melted. So very careful play. Solid decision making is going to be required if Jenkins is to have any impact in this game. But Dokula is doing everything he can to make sure he maintains absolute control.
Oh, he wants that Demolish proc.
Oh, yeah, you can see, look at those little crystals ticking down. Oh, no, they're building back up.
He'll get it in a second here as he waits for the Mega Gnar to run out from Jenkins before he continues to pressure. And Palafox has roamed his way down there, wanted to get involved in that. There was a pink ward to spot it out, and with that timing, Golden Guardians Academy are going to push into that river and get complete vision control of the Baron buff. Good reaction to the attempt by Palafox.
And talking about the Gnar, I mentioned his items. Look across the split. Look at Gangplank's items. You've got a Trinity Force, Asterix Gauge. Whoa. Oh, it's scary. It's Kadir. Going to be equally scary trying to get onto Bobchin there. Forces out the Azir ulti as a trade for the Sejuani ult. Kadir still getting himself away, but that's two big ultis from both sides down. As Winter now finds his way onto Jurassic, the damage comes through, and Andy picks up the kill for himself. Jurassic, we talked about how vulnerable that Varus is, and positioning like that's going to get you in trouble.
Yep, you always say how, as a Tahm Kench, you almost need to stay on top of your AD carry. As soon as we saw a special port in without the Varus, you're a little concerned about what's going to happen. The rest of Golden Guardians trying to rotate through that river that they thought they had vision control of. They spotted out Jurassic on his own, and then Winter makes the call to kind of just run right past Potluck, ignore him, hop on Varus. They get that kill, and now they're threatening this Baron buff. They've got vision control back.
Yeah, you're blind right now if you're Golden Guardians. You want to know what's in that pit, but it's so scary just to check it. Jenkins in the bottom side finally takes down that tier 1. That's the second turret of the game. Golden Guardians Academy. Over the wall goes OpTic to see what they can find. Potluck devoured to safety. Flash over the wall from Nick Special. That's that 2-for-1 flash deal that you can get out of the Tahm Kench. True Shot Barrage will not find the mark today, but with the enemy jungler taken down to a mere 200 HP, OpTic decides it's time to pull the trigger on Baron.
Same when checking his items, though. He's got Warmog. You haven't forced him out. He has Flash. This is a dangerous force here by OpTic.
All right, it could be going straight for the 50-50. Let's see what they're doing. Winter wants to try to provide that cover fire. Can they do it? No! The steal from Potluck. This is a potential huge turn for Golden Guardians. Bobchin in the pit, trying to lay down the damage. Andy going to be forced to run away from Jenkins here. Jurassic over the wall coming in, trying to lay down the DPS. Only one man left standing on OpTic Academy. He's a pretty big fella, but is he strong enough to fight this 1 versus 2? The Mega Gnar gonna whiff. Dokla gets himself away, but considering that is a 3-for-4, and you end up getting the Baron, OpTic, nope. Dokla with the barrel in time. That definitely went the way of the Golden Guardian.
Fancy feat by Dokla there. Has to dodge about 6 skill shots in a row to get out. But like I was saying, it did not feel like OpTic were completely aware of the situation. The enemy jungler has Warmogs, and you did not get his flash in that previous pickoff attempt. So there's really no incentive to start this Baron buff off. He comes back in full HP, he flashes the wall, he gets the smite steal, and now you're all low from that force without many summoners available, or skills available, because you just use them in that pickoff attempt. They get pinned off in the pit. They're very lucky Bobchin walked a little bit too far forward there. If he played that a little slower, he probably is able to get them pinned in with the Azir and just destroy them. As a result, a couple more members drop. The Varus dies as well, and then Dokla is able to get out as he dodges the Tongue Lash, a giant drill, an ultimate. They teleport back on top of him with the Tahm Kench ult.
He dodged everything.
They miss everything again, so Dokla coming up huge for his team here after the slight throw. It was a pretty big throw, actually.
Yeah, fancy feet on that man there, but Golden Guardians now only down about 1,000 gold, looking to pick themselves up a Mountain Drake, which will make future Baron attempts as well as turret pushes easier. You can see Jenkins Gnar now having that frozen mallet as well, but when you compare that to Dokla, completed Phantom Dancer, BF sword now in the inventory, this is the guy I'm looking at. If you're saying who's going to carry OpTic now, the answer is Dokla.
Yeah, we were always saying that on the side of OpTic, they probably have a slight scaling advantage anyways. So despite the throw, as bad as it is, you just want to hold on here. Don't lose too many more objectives. Hopefully the gold lead's still even by the time this Baron buff wears off, but Golden Guardians doing their best to push that advantage.
Well, hopefully if you're OpTic, unhopefully if you're Golden Guardians, they would love to bulldoze down a couple more of these structures, get themselves some global gold advantage there. You've still got all 3 tier 2 turrets standing on the side of OpTic Academy, so that's some money that Golden Guardians have their eyes set on for the next 60 seconds or so as they have that Baron buff still around. Tier 2 mid goes down. It was very low. Those last couple of arrows from Jurassic will do the deed on that one.
Dokla flanking, though.
Dokla wanting to maybe set something up here. Is standing on a control ward. If he ends up getting caught out, that could be a disaster. Jurassic going to be devoured to safety. Gets himself away thanks to the efforts of Xpecial. Frontline Kadir, though, he has the stone plate on the Sejuani. Potluck going to be taken very close to death, is taken down. Jenkins not able to enter into the fight there, but they will grab the kill onto Winter. The Syndra ulti coming down, finding the damage onto Jurassic. Jenkins also falls in the meantime. Bobchin now trying to get himself away. It's 2 dead on the side of OpTic, 3 on the side of Golden Guardians.
Small advantage there for OpTic Gaming. A very, very scrappy fight between the two teams. Frontliners engaging on each other, slightly missing. Saw Winter went into Flash Headbutt Pulverize to help his buddy Dokla, who was caught a little bit out of position. And the follow-up by Kadir went wide, so the Sejuani ult not having much of an impact in that fight. And the result of that is pretty good for OpTic. You're stalling the game out, all things considered, against a Baron buff team. We'll take another look at that. See Dokla get caught out of position. Winter trying to hop on to the enemy, but special there this time to save the Varus. Pulls him out of the Sejuani ultimate, and then it's kiting front to back. But like you said, that Gargoyle Stone Plate Sejuani able to do so much more in the fight. Jenkins hits Mega after it's kind of already decided. Palafox flashes in for that ultimate that we were talking about. You want to do on a Sindri. You want to go for those flash ultimates, and Tahm Kench was not available there to help. So good timing by Palafox, gets traded out, and ends up being a 1-for-1 overall after that flash in, but 2 for 3 in the greater scheme of things.
And this game is still 28 kills in 29 minutes, Mark. This thing hasn't gotten any less bloody than when we started it off. Both of these teams just so ready to fight. I mean, sometimes you see a game where one team wants to do that and the other one's like, no, we just want to disengage. But this game, they're both ready to go for it. Jenkins, now the one who finds himself in... all right, I guess it's not that bad at all.
A little scary there for a second. Was going Mininar, but was able to hit a barrel to keep himself from getting comboed a little bit. But still scary. Jenkins having no pressure in the side lane. Feels like OpTic has no problem roaming other members over there too. Palafox made an attempt just previously. This time it's Kadir. Not able to find the kill, but just putting pressure on Jenkins, never making him feel safe in these side lanes.
Kadir 3, 1, and 10 on this Sejuani. Part of every kill except for 1 on his team. Only 1 death to his name. Winter forced to use the ulti here in mid lane. That's a big tool down. You really want to avoid a team fight if you can until that's back up. Alistair, we know him as this big rampaging bull in a team fight, but he's kind of just cow going to the slaughterhouse without the ult, so I don't really know what you're going to do with him until that ultimate's back up.
A lot less threatening when he doesn't have all that true flat damage reduction, percent damage reduction. Excuse me. So Winter and OpTic going to take it a little slow now. Dokla's just trying to be a nuisance. Gets on the Jenkins again. Going to 1v1 him here.
That is a murderous nuisance, Mark. One more hit should do it, and there you go. Over the wall goes Dokla, and into the dirt goes Jenkins. It's going to be 50 seconds till he's back out on the Rift, which means more pressure for Dokla. Now the Golden Guardians will have to answer.
He's definitely stepping up on this gangplank here. Was actually behind Golden Guardians trying to cut the wave previously, so Golden Guardians couldn't push in the mid lane after forcing the ultimate out of Winter. They went up to the top side, tried to push there, and then Jenkins, who was kind of left to deal with Dokla, ends up getting solo killed out. So he is really putting on a performance here. Smashed the laning phase. Been playing out the team situations better than anyone else on his team. And it's kind of the shining bright spot for why they're able to have control of this game. And there you just see some unlucky vision clearing on the side of Jenkins.
Dokla's positioning there in terms of the blast cone was good as well, making sure he didn't get thrown the wrong way. Trying to stand as far on top of Jenkins as he could. Speaking of Jenkins, he is now, just now, back alive. Once again, a 5 versus 5 situation between these two squads as Baron's 15 seconds away from spawning. Now, if you're OpTic, you would hope that you learned a lesson from the last attempt. You don't want to risk any sort of another Baron throw. 1 can ruin a game, 2 can just completely mess everything up.
Yeah, they were lucky to get out with only the gold lead closing on the side of Golden Guardians. Like I said, if you lose another Baron buff, probably completely out of your control. Surprisingly, also, Jenkins going for a Blade of the Rune King third. I'm not convinced that's a good item purchase versus a GP who's already at 4.5 items.
I mean, we saw the GP barrel hit him when he was Mininar, when he was clearing vision for about a third of his health. This isn't going to make you any tankier against those kind of hits. It's not going to make you a better team fighter either. And since you can't split push against the gangplank, the decision is a bit suspect. Maybe it'll end up coming in clutch, but aside from a situation where you're cleaning up after a fight you already won and you have to chase somebody down, I'm not 100% sure.
Are these new?
What?
The timers on the trinkets?
Those aren't timers. Those are vision scores, Mark.
Ah, vision scores. I stand corrected.
That shows how good you are keeping track of where your opponent is. And if we're looking at those vision scores, it's all about X-Special, the 96 on the Tahm Kench, but it's the enemy jungler, Kadir, the guy who's actually got the highest score on his team. Higher even than his support. So this guy's been doing a lot of work with that Tracker's Knife. You can see 2 control wards in his inventory right now. Doing everything in his power to track those movements. Make sure Golden Guardians never catch OpTic by surprise. I mean, the only time that we really saw much of that happen recently was when it looked like Dokla may have been caught out, but with Sterix and the ability to eat his oranges, is it really that much of a catch?
Yeah, not too much. OpTic has been the one making a lot more attempts generally at the side lanes to find pickoffs. Hasn't quite worked out yet. A lot more of this has just been strictly 5v5s. Here, Winter, once again, getting chunked out by Jurassic, going aggressive.
Yeah, Jurassic just putting tons of arrows into those guys. Winter losing half his HP there. Kadir going to lose some as well, but he doesn't really matter because he has Warmogs. It'll all be back in a couple of seconds.
Yeah, Winter poke damage not super substantial, but Golden Guardians were able to protect their pink ward there. And you get to see those kind of vision control battles where people really go to town on each other just for trying to get more control of the map.
And I mean, that's the name of the game. When you're 34 minutes into a game of League of Legends, Baron is alive, and there's less than a 1,000 gold difference between the two teams. Vision can decide whether or not your Nexus blows up or theirs does. If you can sneak one of those Barons, especially for Golden Guardians, now that they've got that Mountain Drake up, they could do it very quickly.
Yeah, you see just how much effort they're putting around here. OpTic had a couple members recall in that time, all going back, and so Golden Guardians read that. They move into the river, they clear out a bunch of these pink wards. They don't have too many wards of their own to drop, and so OpTic's gonna kind of cycle them here where they were able to get their back off, buy more pink wards, refresh their trinkets, or excuse me, sight stones that are not sight stones anymore. What is the general term for vision item as a support position now if you're trying to?
I still call them sight stones.
Okay, I'm calling it. They refresh their sight stones, so they're going to be able to get more vision down here around the Baron buff, despite Golden Guardians just
I still call the Raptors chickens or wraiths too, so I don't know if you should trust me, but I still call them sight stones.
I still call Grompa white.
Oh, I forgot when he was just a big retextured wraith.
Yeah, for like not even a year.
Yeah,
just a small portion of time.
Good old times, good old times. And what was it, season 5? Yeah, we both said 5, so it had to be 5.
I don't know that.
I'm not quite sure, but we'll have to see. Maybe we'll figure that out eventually. Still 64,000 to 63,000 gold, 1K between the two teams. Control over the Baron area currently exercised by the Golden Guardians. But can they win the fights? That's the question. You talked about how well Dokla's been playing these team fights, Mark, and now that he's at full build on this Gangplank, I mean, I guess you could sell a boot, but Chains of Corruption down onto Palafox, who's forced to flash away, but here comes your engage from Winter and the rest of OpTic Academy. This could be disaster for Golden Guardians, who've already lost their 80 carry. Potluck now going to be run down by Dokla. Jenkins getting himself away, Bobchin as well. Winter still looking to go further forward. Jenkins not in Mega Gnar in time to use the ulti. They've already lost 2 members. The fight cannot continue. The jungler dead for real this time. It's Baron for OpTic Academy.
Really nice counter engage by Winter there. Locked up multiple members of Golden Guardians Academy so that Gangplank ultimate to come down and rain on top of the entire side of Golden Guardians. And then a couple kills. They had to use so many resources to try and save Jurassic. Not quite able to do so. Andy on that Ezreal pick. Playing it a little close. Or excuse me, as Palafox gets jumped on there. He almost goes down, has to flash away. And there's that counter engage that we're talking about. The rest of the team follows up. Dokla comes in from the side. Gets knocked into the enemy team, but with that Sterix gauge in orange actually heals up quite a bit pretty quickly. So he's just fine. And after you get the enemy jungler, that's a free Baron buff.
And now with Baron under their belts, OpTic Academy took this game from 1,000 gold to 6,000 gold in the blink of an eye. Only 1 turret left standing outside of the Golden Guardians base. Still just under 3 minutes left of this buff. OpTic have plenty of time to look to push and turn this into a win.
Not before they recall one more time, though. OpTic.
Yep, got to get your footing, right?
Yep, again, their final items, GP max items. Syndra still has a little bit more room to go. Same with Andy. GP was way ahead of this game in terms of overall gold.
Yeah, the
He's like, guys, is it 60
look
minutes?
at his farm. It's 412 in 37 minutes.
Yeah, you
disgustingly far.
We've been playing for an hour. Why do I have so much gold? Everyone's like, nah, dude, it's 37 minutes. I still need a full item.
And then you look across the table with the Gnar now at 3 full items plus a boot. Working on some defense now. Got the chain vest in the inventory. So trying to get a little bit beefier for these upcoming team fights. And honestly, if you're Golden Guardians, one more big team fight loss and the game's over.
Yeah, absolutely. From this point on, you're basically going to be pinned in your base. And when you lose a fight in that situation, you know inhibitors are dropping and maybe Nexus turrets as well. So they've got to play it really careful. OpTic have a pretty threatening siege comp. Syndra can fish for her ult. Barrels can get shot underneath the turret. Ezreal fishing with Qs. There's a lot of ways to get damage from what you think is a relatively safe position here.
All right, you've got 2 different waves pushing up now, both middle and bottom being occupied by OpTic Academy members. Andy putting the auto attacks into this turret. takes that one down. Inhibitor now exposed, means OpTic moves multiple men into position to take this objective down. Looks like it's going to go there, no contest, as now they just rotate themselves over towards mid lane, working on that Inhibitor turret now as well. Bob throws out a couple of soldiers, Chains of Corruption going to find their way onto Andy, who does manage to buffer that out, utilizing the power of the Arcane Shift to get himself to safety. Inhibitor number 2 falls, not even 30 seconds after number 1, and OpTic Academy now, Mark, in a fantastic spot.
Yep, get both inhibs in the bot and mid lane. They're going to recall one more time. People start to get chunked out just a little bit, so use that Baron and Power recall while you got it. Move up to that top lane where you can probably easily just 5-man siege. GP ult people off the waves, things like that as it comes back up in just a second here. They're going to have an easy time. Nice triple barrel combo.
Boom, boom, boom. It has such a cool noise on that skin, too. It's just a big kaboom. 1376 damage is a nice looking number, too. That's a kaboom kind of number.
Yeah, that noise and the number kind of line up pretty well there.
Yeah, that worked out pretty solid. Dokla's a force to be reckoned with, and you can see now he has sold his Ninja Tab. He replaced it with an Essence Reaver, so 100% crit on this Gangplank means every barrel is going to be a 1376er.
Big damage.
Big boy.
Big crits.
Big crits over there on the side of OpTic Academy. Should be big enough to end this game with a 9,000 gold lead. The team grouped up in the top side, all except for Dokla, who's pushing up this mid lane with the help of the super minions. Baron is gone, but I don't really think you need it at this point with this kind of a lead.
No, absolutely not. Like we were saying, you have some ultimates that you can kind of use as a zoning tool. Escort the wave in. The Azir and the Varus both need to walk up a little bit, so you just kind of drop that GP ult on the turret, maybe hope to zone them away with that. They even have a Banner of Command, apparently, to try and keep that magic damage off it. You can see how much tankier that Cannon Creeps gets.
Still never got to the turret, poor little guy.
No, not really that close at all. But hey, Banner of Command, halfway up. Hopefully this time they can protect the wave a little bit more. And you can also have an easier time of doing that once the super creeps kind of get escorted in. Hopefully Dokla meets up with one of these waves. Looks like he might be going to solo the Elder Dragon instead, though. That's another good way of accelerating this game.
Yep, you've got 2 Drakes for yourself. One of them is Infernal, so taking this down is going to be very effective. Elder Dragon is actually, for anybody who doesn't know, ridiculously easy to solo if you've got a few items under your belt. It doesn't have the same damage debuff that Baron Nashor does on whoever he's targeting, so one person can just walk up and beat the crap out of the dragon, grab it for the entire team.
The effects of Baron Nashor are one of the probably least understood things in the game for like...
Most people don't even know that he has a damage debuff.
They just see like the lines and they're like, I get knocked up
like, oh, he's spitting on me.
Yeah, but they're not quite sure. It's like, man, he's shredding my armor and MR.
Oh,
and
no.
I'm getting knocked up, and I have a damage debuff on me. Oh, boy.
For those of you that do not know, the person tanking Baron's auto attack, that basic green spit projectile, does 50% less of all kinds of damage. That's why it's so hard to solo him. As Dokla moves into the enemy base, the cannon barrage comes down, the final inhibitor turret falls, Potluck is nearly taken out, Sejuani ulti finding its way onto that non-tanky Gnar, and Jenkins is gone without even a say. OpTic Academy pushing onto those Nexus turrets for the win here now. Andy deciding he's going to make a pit stop real quick on that final inhibitor, just put the last few nails here in this coffin. Golden Guardians have a 4 versus 5 in their hands for the next 45 seconds. I don't know if they're going to get to have the full 45. OpTic Academy with Elder Dragon buff on and running, pushing onto the Nexus turrets. They're already going down. Jurassic is down. And this should be the game. It's all she wrote. It was close for a long time, but OpTic Academy will take the win after 42 minutes.
A pretty impressive performance out of them, all things considered. It did get sloppy at a couple parts, but there were key players to highlight and a couple key moments worth talking about. Obviously, Dokla smashing laning phase as a GP into Gnar is a great sign for him. He's someone who we've been tracking a little bit here in Academy, tends to have some counter picks, a little bit more of a carry focus. We've seen Aurelias, we've seen Trundles. Nice to see him on the meta GP and then winning a meta matchup.
Yeah, winning the meta matchup, looking really good in the meta matchup. But as we said, it's not just individuality, it's team play. Like what we got to see here 9 minutes into the game. OpTic, 4 for 1, bottom lane. Big plays coming out from these guys working together.
It's just slightly too aggressive. They already killed Winter. They want to get this bot lane dive off, but the enemy team is collapsing. Kadir is able to come in, kind of make this one trade out a 1 for 1. and it feels like, all right, we could leave here, and it wouldn't be that bad. But you see Potluck takes a weird path to get out of here. Jurassic's kind of zoning. They know the Syndra's coming over. She's going to be able to get the flash R to get the kill on to Potluck. And now Jurassic trying to kite out, in a little bit of trouble here. Kadir flashes away, but then Bobchin escorts both members on top of his AD carry. I guess maybe there's some internal beef, doesn't really like him. Gets him killed there, and so ends up being set like a 4-for-1 when it could have just been a 2-for-1 basically.
But like you said earlier, Mark, this wasn't a completely one-sided wash of a game. This wasn't an avalanche that OpTic just took by storm. Golden Guardians did catch up later with this Baron steal and a 4 versus 3 fight that happened after.
And it was just a small error in judgment. They were not paying attention to the fact Potluck had Warmog, so he's able to regen up, run back in, take some damage, and then flash in for the steal. Afterwards, not very clean either. Bobchin walks a little bit too far forward on the Azir, gets blown up. The Varus flashes the wall. He's going to die as well. They clean that fight up a little bit. Dokla gets out after dodging a million skill shots, continuing that great performance this game out of him. But it did throw the game into doubt for a little while.
Yep, but the doubt ends up being expelled sort of the same way that it showed up. The first Baron didn't go so good, but then the second Baron ends up being where OpTic take the lead. They get themselves a 2-for-0 in mid lane, then they secure Baron at 37.
Yeah, this time around, it's, you know what, forget having to worry about a Warmogs healing up the Gragas on the enemy team. Let's just kill
the guy.
Yeah, they just kill him. Jurassic as well, caught out a little bit out of position. Dokla is able to come in with that flank after the rest of the team was keeping Palafox alive as he got Varus ulted, and it kind of forced the enemy team to clump up as they chase that immobile Syndra. Nice counter engage by Winter.
I mean, if you're looking at individuals this game, I think Dokla's the biggest story because he just performed out of his mind. He did fantastic. But that last fight, like you were saying, I think is a great example of everybody on OpTic working together well. Palafox knew to get the hell out when he was the target. He ends up baiting the enemy team in. Winter and then Dokla engaging with the Alistar combo plus the Gangplank ulti. And you even saw Andy move up very far on that Ezreal because he was like, look, I know I'm safe. I'm just going to get up in Jurassic's face and start hitting him. And that's exactly what you wanted to see. The whole team worked well as a unit to deserve this win.
I think it's a game that ends up looking a little worse than it was on the side of OpTic. Very, very bloody early game as both teams opted into a lot of fights. And that one Baron throw, it was an intelligent play if they had just tracked the Warmogs because they forced the enemy jungler out. He's really low. They think he has to go back to base. That's a free Baron. Just weren't quite completely aware of the situation, but it showed that they were following the right steps at least. Do something to the enemy jungler. Usually it's kill him and then force the objective.
And those are the kinds of things you want to see out of a team heading into the second half of the split if they want to be competitive and go for one of those playoff spots. But whoever said one and done was not talking about our Academy League adventures here today. Game 2 is coming up after the break with Cloud9 versus TSM. You're watching the North American Academy League.
A small trade there in favor of OpTic, but gotta be careful.
All right, Potluck coming in, making a flash play. Stun missing, doesn't even matter. The ult connects, finds its mark, and now Bobchin. The backup has finally arrived for Golden Guardians. One more lick, and he's going to end up getting devoured. There you go. Gets spit right back out into the enemy team. Bobchin in the pit, trying to lay down the damage. Andy going to be forced to run away from Jenkins here. Jurassic over the wall coming in, trying to lay down the DPS.
Gets on the Jenkins again. Gonna 1v1 him here.
That is a murderous nuisance, Mark. One more hit should do it, and the final inhibitor turret falls. Potluck is nearly taken out. Sejuani ulti finding its way onto that non-tanky Gnar.